30, I guess, something like that, whatever it is. All right, we're it. This is it. All right. The great God Zuckerberg led us on to his website, his little social media platform. All right. Welcome to the dark side. I have the honor of actually introducing Macaulay to Massachusetts audience. This weekend is the premiere of the Dark Arts Whiskey House to Massachusetts. And I know a lot of you have not heard of Dark Arts Whiskey House before. You're going to, if you haven't, and you're going to hear it from a lot of different people, because what Macaulay is doing and what Macaulay has set up, I think, is truly innovative, and not only innovative, but exceedingly delicious. So without further ado, Randall's here to be backup support, the spirits medium to the gods, and Macaulay Milton is here with us today. And welcome.
Thank you, Ryan, for having
Welcome
me.
to Massachusetts.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Now get out.
But leave your whiskey.
Yeah, but leave the whiskey.
Yeah, I came to collect that check you owe me.
That's right. Good luck with that, by the way.
So full disclosure, we've known you for a little bit while, and we've worked on some projects and stuff, but it is exciting to be able to kind of unveil what the things that you've been working on behind the curtain, behind the scenes, to put out. So welcome again, and we're excited. So
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and to be able to share this brand with everyone. I'm no stranger to the whiskey industry. I've been working in the industry for about 10 years, straight out of college. I started working in a fermentation lab doing yeast optimization research for ale strain for beer production. That we ended up taking that one to market as an English ale strain. After that, I got hired to be a distillery operator at Wilderness Trail Distillery, where I worked for most of my career. I started their single barrel program about 6 years ago, and that's where I got to meet these guys at. But had the pleasure of tasting through thousands and thousands of barrels of whiskey, and always kind of having an idea of how I would do things a little bit different. And one of those things that I'm very passionate about is flavor development through maturation, and that's kind of what this tasting is going to highlight for us today. So we've got a lot of different products going on, and a lot of different things going on at Dark Arts Whiskey House. I think we've got about 40 different labels that are out on the market right now. But what is Dark Arts Whiskey House? So we are not a distillery. So that's where that name Whiskey House comes from. So we kind of follow in that tradition of Irish, Scotch whiskey, and Armagnac, where we'll buy and source aged product from other distilleries and bring it back to the whiskey house. And that's where the magic comes in. That's where the alchemy comes in. So the brand is rooted in alchemy, and you can kind of see on the back of that card some of that symbolism that's on the bottle. With that, we have developed a process called the 7 phases of whiskey alchemy. So the first process of that is crop growth. The reason the crop growth is important is the grain selection. We use 4 different types of grains in our whiskey. We use, of course, malted barley, of course, corn, rye, and we use another fun one, malted rye as well too. So big on the flavor grains for that. The second phase of whiskey alchemy is fermentation. So what does fermentation do in the process? It's what is transforming those sugars and starches into alcohol that can be distilled out. But most importantly, you have to think of the flavor development of that. You have to think of how the fermentation is. Is it sour mash? Is it sweet mash? What's the entry pH on it? What is the bricks that we're hitting? What type of yeast strain are we using to develop those different esters and flavor conjures that are going to carry through in the final product? The next stage is distillation. There's all kinds of different stills, different ways of cutting, different proofs that can go off the still, and then going into maturation. So with that, I'm thinking, what is our barrel entry proof, and how does proof affect the flavor? Because water and ethanol are kind of the cursors of flavor that brings across the palate. So the secret sauce on that one is proof, wood, and time. Finally, we get into, or next we get into finishing. So we do a lot of finishing. We do exotic woods wine finishes, different spirit finishes. And then we also do a combination where we'll blend different elements together to come up with some really unique products. And you guys are going to be trying some of those in just a minute. Next on that list is blending. So blending is what this business is about. So between the different elements of finishing, but also what we're putting in there, different mash bill, and the final bottling as well too is important to the process, because you got to think about, are we putting out a product that is going to be bottled at cask strength? Are we going to cut it down to 80 proof? And there's also some visual things too. When you're approaching a bottle of whiskey, I mean, you kind of have a mindset of the lore on the packaging. So there's a lot of intent and intention that goes into that and into this bottle. So one of the things that we did was we came up with those 7 phases of whiskey alchemy. We put that on the front of the bottle. We put a really cool Latin phrase on the front of the bottle, which probably no one in this room can read that on the front of the bottle, but the translation is "Divine Convention, Unleash Your Spirit." And I think that that is what the brand is encompassing, is kind of breaking through the status quo of what has to be American whiskey, because for some reason, American whiskey is very rigid on people and their perceptions of staving or different finishing techniques. I think there's been some terrible people out in the industry that have done some bad things. Like, who's ever seen a Neapolitan milk stout barrel out in the wild? So we use all natural flavors from the wine, the woods, and the spirits to come up with these products. And there is the some symbolism a little bit further in there on the bottle. We have the Ouroboros on there, which is the snake eating its tail. That kind of represents that cycle of infinity, of life and death, of the moment, and the journey through the spiritual and material realm. And then on here we also have some Japanese technique of, I'm going to butcher this, I'm from Hickman, Kentucky, but we're going to say kinstung on it. So that is where they will take a broken piece of pottery, fill it back with gold, but it really just kind of shows that even though something's broken down, that its greater value and beauty is still within it. And we really feel this is an alchemical process of taking ordinary whiskey and turning it into liquid gold. So a little bit about the packaging. So you can see that there's some different colors on here. These different colors are representative of the mash bill. So the first one that we'll be going through is the black label, and that is significant of the mash bill. So that is 51 corn, 39 rye, and 10% malted rye. The red label is the same foundation whiskey, and that is 60 corn, 36 rye, and 4% malted barley. And then the green label is what the gods decided green was rye whiskey. So that is just straight up 95.5 with a unique flavor profile from Ambarana in it. And then one thing that we haven't covered is the blue. So what is the blue? The blue is the catch-all for specialty blending projects. So we have we have 3 items in our core lineup. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're doing. So we have a traditional single barrel program where you can come select 3 different varietals of French oak. We have white port, red port, Madeira, Pinot Noir, Spanish orange wine, Takai, Sauternes, Calvados, Armagnac, Ambarana wood. We have a couple different profiles of American oak. One's just traditional. One is a vanilla spice bomb. And going past that is what we came together and started working on, was where can we push where can we push the market at? What can we do that is rooted in history and still be able to come up with some innovation? And that is where we've decided to land on doing micro batches. So the small batch is something that is a marketing term that no one cares about. Who knows what a small batch is, except for I do. And Dark Arts Whiskey House, it is always a 3-barrel blend on our or on our core lineup. So I don't blend for consistency like other brands do. So there's going to be variation of nuances batch to batch between flavor and aromatics, but it's still going to be encompassed in one kind of wheelhouse of flavor.
But it's always going to be, you're always shooting for the best. What can I make
Yes.
it taste the best?
Always the
And
best.
so it doesn't have to taste like the one before it. It just has to be the best what I can make now.
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
That's a great way of doing it.
So we've
It's
got
also going to give you variation. This is the weirdest thing. I've never seen somebody, because we talked about core lineup, whether you should do one or not. And he said, well, I sort of had to do a core lineup. I go, not really, because by taking that sort of philosophy of how you're going to do your core lineup, you already created variables. So the core lineup is never going to be the same. So if you like a certain one, it's like, okay, get that one, because the next one is going to be slightly different.
yeah, we just bottled batch 7 of the Barely Legal, and I deem that the best one that I've put together. So I instructed my team to take 20 cases into my basement for quality control.
For quality control and what do they call it? Historic purposes.
Yeah, it's in the archives.
Yeah, the archives. I've heard that story before.
So we've got a lot of whiskey in front of us. So we're gonna kind of jump around because Amberana is part of the core lineup, but once you go Amberana, you can't go back on the
Yeah.
palette. So we're going to save that one for very last. But let's we can start diving into the first lineup. So the first one is the Barely Legal Bourbon. I already said the mash bill earlier, 51, 39, 10 rye. This one is always 3-barrel blend, and this one's always bottled at cask strength as well too. So that'd be one of the other variables that we see on batch to batch. This one actually came out to be 115 proof, and it is 6.5 years old. Actually, it's like 6 years, 10 months old, but you don't put that on the label. Everything is turned 7 recently, and then we've also got some 10-year-old product that we trickle out in the market as well too. So
It's a really interesting flavor on this one. I almost get like a tea berry.
I'm gonna take the Zen out to make sure I can taste it properly.
So if it has a different proof strength and or do you also list the batch number on it? Would you know that there's a change, but just not by you're buying the same color label, and now you're coming back a few months later because you loved it, and the proof strength's changed or the batch numbers changed. You're hoping that you're going to stand by the fact that you make it more excellent, but it won't be identical to what you had a few months ago.
Be
Or
the
if
same
batch
wheelhouse
number
though,
changed.
right?
Same
Right.
wheelhouse. So think
Yeah.
about when you're buying a single barrel pick from X distillery. I mean, everyone's going to be a little bit different. It's
Mhm.
going to have its own unique signature motif to it.
Yeah, but you're fixing it unlike like a single barrel series. You have three barrels is not a lot. Let's start there. It's not a lot,
Right.
but that also allows you to to fine tune it also. So
It's-
you're not stuck with a single barrel, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not stuck there and you're trying to find one barrel that's going to come off right. You can actually take the 3 and make and actually affect the flavor profile.
100%. That's the beauty of it. I mean, it's a lot more difficult to blend smaller quantities because
Right.
you have to figure out the layers and the impact that each barrel is going to have in the final product. Because just because you have 3 of the same lot and mash bill doesn't mean that all 3 of those are going to go together well and present themselves into a bottle that I would want to put out in the market.
What do you guys think of the first one? Really
So-
good, right? I had a lot of really interesting flavors on there, and I actually thought it was gonna skew too much to the rye because it's only got 51 corn in there, but it doesn't. I was sort of shocked about that. I think that's the higher level of how much malt did you say? Like 10%?
10% malted
I think
rye.
that sort of
So
like did that a little
for
bit.
me, the malted rye impacts the flavor by adding more fruit notes to
Right.
it. Some of these barrels also have a sweet candy-like quality to it that I kind of call like a peanut brittle or like a I don't know, a caramelized fudge or something like that. Or even we've found some recently that tastes like creme brulee. That smash bill has I've drank a lot of single barrels. I ran a single barrel program, but there's so much varietal in these lots that come across with this, and that's why I fell in love with this mash bill when it was presented to me, and decided that I had to have that in the core lineup.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. I was getting like a tea berry on the end. I don't know. Up in New England, I don't know if that's around the air around the country, but I mean, let's go back to Boy Scouting when you used to walk through the woods and eat tea berries. And make sure you eat a tea berry,
Well,
not something else.
We got tea and we got berries. in
Yeah, it's a little
Kentucky, but
different.
I
It's
don't
different.
think we
It's
got
tea,
tea
I'll
berry
get you some
down
tea berry
there.
gum. So that's the closest thing I can get you probably this time of year.
And
What do you guys think? Though, did you like it? Yeah. Okay.
So one of the things that I've been doing recently is that as I'm getting towards the end of that bottle, I'll seek out the next batch, but leave a little bit in so that I can compare them and know that it's an evolving process. So that's just something that I do. But like most people go to the end of the bottle and then they panic. But it requires you a little bit of planning to kind of compare it. But I think that you'll see a fairly, you're looking for the same bandwidth of flavor and aroma, but each one is going to be different. And I think that's fascinating to me to see against the backwash of the typical everything tastes the same because they're doing 600 barrels at a time.
So a secret about Randall is he likes to take the neck pour and keep that off to the
Right.
side, and then he gets
I
out
do.
the center cut of it, and then just dissects the bottle like that.
I got my center cut tool right here. We can get to the center cut of any of these barrels right now.
And
These
here's
bottles.
my valve for drawing it off from the middle of the bottle. So I just pull it out.
No, but oxidization is something that does occur, and I honestly think that I like to open these bottles up and let them breathe a little bit. I
Oh,
feel like
absolutely.
it helps it out in the process. I mean,
You get I mean, you're up over 100 proof. You're gonna have volatile vapors sitting in that in the top of the bottle. Anyways,
can you puff those?
you can if you like.
Okay.
I mean, you're making one for a blunt for 420. So I
Yeah.
mean, you do you, brother. You do you. All right. So now the next one we're into like these are like I don't know they're sister. You're starting with all the same mash bill, right?
This one is
That's
different
the part of
mash
the
bill.
core, though,
Yeah,
right?
this is the core
Okay.
next one. So this one is 60 corn, 36 rye, 4% malted barley. And I proofed this down to a very, very low proof of 108. And what we do with this one is we do a toasted French oak stave with this one. So when I
That's
was
lovely.
the French oak profile on this is a very specific forest origin called Jalipes. It is one of the smallest forests in France that they actually are able to harvest wood from. A very old growth forest, very tight grain. The reason that I love this wood so much is you don't get the bitterness and the tannins that you do with a lot of other French oak on it. This has a very heavy toast on it, so you get that nice savory French oak. I get a little bit of perceived fruit on there that I always like to call like raspberry or red fruit. And then you get some of that caramelized wood sugar from that toasting process that
I'm getting like Madagascar vanilla at the end of that too. That's like
I was thinking
strong, right?
Ugandan, but okay.
Yeah. Oh well. You gone there, I guess. So we can go there, I guess. But it is. It's really like it shows up. Like I mean, it's like it's so like I don't like to give people tasting notes. I'll let people do their own. But when something's so pronounced like that, you sort of can't miss
All
it.
right, let me just point this out. Tea berry and Madagascar
Yeah.
vanilla. No tasting notes from you.
No,
Okay.
those are really obvious, weren't they?
Okay, yeah.
I thought those are really obvious ones. I got a whole bunch of New Englanders. Who doesn't know what does everybody know what tea berry is? Who doesn't know what tea berry is? All right, get a life. All right, I guess I got to buy a whole bunch of tea berry gum now.
Yeah.
We've done it with circus peanuts. Trust me, you'll all regret saying that. So, all right, I like this one too. I like the finish on it, and it's a long finish too.
You said something before about how you're going to buck against essentially the status quo. And we're already seeing this in what most people would consider your core or your most, I don't want to say basic, but like your core lineup is the thing that's going to keep coming out. And yet it's both very different from anything that's out there. So
I would call this a core series.
yeah, the core series.
How about that? I think that's better. I think that's
there's
more
nothing really
apropos.
that basic about it. You
Right.
can break it down, but the flavor is already branching off to be very non-traditional, but excellent.
Yeah, everything in the core lineup is very bold and dynamic.
Core series.
Core series.
Yeah.
I'll have to-
Listen, I get you using micro batch. I'll get you using
Yeah.
core series. Don't worry about it.
Ryan's been in my mentorship program, so I've been trying to guide him over the years.
So funny. No, this is really. Listen, I'm not trying to give you a big head or not, but this is really cool. I like it. I love it a lot. And what's really neat is we were able to we have all the core lineup, like the regular core lineup is upstairs right now too. So
Serious.
Thank you. Keep
All
correcting
right.
me until I get it right. All right. So what's this next one?
The next one is actually it's Armagnac finished rye, or high rye bourbon, so that's 60-36 mash bill still. don't drink all of this one just yet because
Thank God you
I
said it.
want
I would
you
forget
to
stuff.
I want you to hold on to this one because this is actually part of the component whiskey that was used in this blend that Ryan and me and Randall put together. So it'd be nice to be able to dissect and be
Yeah.
able to see the difference in just the straight Armagnac versus the Armagnac and French oak on that one.
So this is the French oak.
No, this one is the
The
Armagnac.
Armagnac,
Yeah,
sorry.
this one's Armagnac. So not really sure the origin of the Armagnac. There was a bunch of scribble in French on the barrel, but I was able to decipher 1980 on there. So we know it was
Do
time
not
stamp.
use radiation danger, radiation. Oh, let's use that one. I something in French, whatever the hell. We could have Christine.
Yeah, I can
You might want to
translate
translate that for you.
that.
Now you're an Armagnac fan. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, huge Armagnac fan.
Yeah.
When he found out we were getting Christine to take in the line, I told him she's the biggest importer of Armagnac to the
Yeah.
U.S. He's like, he actually did this.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll sign a contract. That doesn't matter what it says. I'm over here like, what can I get from her back from France?
And that's a good partnership.
So yeah, very excited to have that team put out distributing here in Massachusetts for us and seeing what we grow and glow together.
Yep, exactly.
Heavenly Spirits, the distributor, but yeah, she's fantastic. Just got recently knighted by the French government.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Fellow Lord.
Fellow Lord.
Fellow Lord.
Yeah.
You were only lorded by me. That's I don't think that quite counts as much as the. Oh wait a minute, it is France. Yeah, it probably does count as much. No, just teasing. All right.
Folks
So
liking the Armagnac?
I like the Armagnac. You guys like this one? Yeah. Proof on that
For
one?
117. That's very surprisingly.
That one. That's 117.
delicious.
Yeah. I like to say, stokes the fire but doesn't choke the chimney. You know, you don't get that. What, you don't like that one?
So many comments. So many.
Usually, Randall only hears these in the car as we're driving around Kentucky. Did you just move them, or are we okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay.
I put them up here wrong.
Okay.
So these next two, we're going to do a little experiment with it because this is the next one is white port followed by red port. I want you to try a sip of it and then we're going to do a little blending activity with it. So there's several different varietals of grape that goes into port, but there's arguably three main styles. The one is white port, red port, and Madeira. White port is going to be produced with the mast off, similar to white wine. Red port is going to be with the mast on. For me, white port's a little bit more bright, fruit forward, just very fun, fun cocktail or fun wine to drink, honestly. And you should definitely drink more white port because it is the least of the production, and I need more barrels of it at this point.
We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah, you
need to drink sherry, white port. We actually need to do a fortified wine fest.
Yes, I'm about that.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, let's take the Julio's credit card out and go to Madeira Island then.
Sure. We'll get as far as halfway. Maybe we'll make the Antilles. I think that we might make it that far.
So,
all right. So the first one is the white port.
The white port, and followed by the red port. So, take a sip.
A lot of people have not had like any type of whiskey, influenced by white port or finished in white port. I think the only one I can think of off the top of my head that has one right now would be the Lefroy Carchus. They used a white port and Madeira finish, right? Am I right on that one? But it has the, and then you have the extra element of the peat in that too. So this is interesting that I don't know if have anybody else had a white port finished whiskey? No? M&H does one, you're right. So not a lot. Let's put it this way. Not a lot. Right? So try this one. What do you think? Don't drink it all.
Yep. And then the progression goes red port is a little bit more dried raisin kind of quality to it. Still has that red fruit in it. And then Madeira is going to be the richest of the three. I get more figs and dates out of that. So you just kind of get a little bit more darker molassesy, like fruit sugars on it.
Yeah, the red port to me a lot of like like raisin, that spicy raisin to it. All right, so that's the next two, right? You
Yep.
got, is that what these two are?
So
4 and 5.
did
4 and
everyone
5.
have a chance to drink the white and red port? All right, what I want you to do is I want you to dump those together now.
Make sure they're about, you might have to sip a little bit. Try to make them even. Damn it, I screwed it up. John, I need some more.
So
And then push them back and forth a couple times between the two cups.
So shameless plug on this activity. We are doing some special releases this year, and red and white port is going to actually be the second release of the limited products that we come out with this year. Funny story about how this came to be is I had a barrel pick group selecting some single barrels, and I had all these samples pulled out. And of course, this was their third barrel pick of the day, so most of the group was dropping like flies. So instead of throwing out all these samples that no one touched, I decided to just throw them all in a mason jar and take it home. And it was all red and white port. And I got home and opened it up and tried it, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" So that's how that came to fruition on that one. It's very interesting how
Bet
so
Typhoid
many.
Mary had been joined the group that day, but
Well, that's probably why I've had COVID like 10 times now. So
I mean, who just gave the New England seal of approval? The New England seal of approval is that's not bad
gotcha.
because only in New England would you use a negative as a positive.
So out of those three, white port standalone, red port, or the marriage of the two, what's everyone like? Let's raise our hand if we like the white port the best.
The best.
The best.
All right, a couple out there.
All right.
Red
Red port. All right. And the cuvee mix.
combo.
All right. Well, my marketing research paid off on that one right now. Thank you guys for being part of the test study.
You know his marketing research happens on his couch at home when he's drinking, right? Everybody got that, right? Okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that one. Small sample, yeah. In a mason jar, I might add. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't tell the doctor that though.
Yes.
Yes, he does.
That'll be
We'll get some.
sometime in the spring.
Yeah, we'll get some. I'm sure Christine's getting some, correct?
Have your people talk to my people.
Oh God, here we go. Yeah. He's already too big for his britches.
It's allocated.
Yeah, is it? Is it?
It's allocated.
For the commoners, it's allocated.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
out.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean,
I can't win to save, but go ahead.
go-
Yeah, what are we doing next?
we're going into some beautiful micro batches that the three of us put together, actually. So we are segueing into the bourbon. So if you still had that Armagnac finished bourbon from before, this one is the one that I would like for you to try against this. Ryan, do you want to explain what we did on this one?
Well, let Randall do it because he's really big on this one.
We mixed some stuff, we tasted it, we smelled it, and then we drank it.
Excellent.
Oh my God, why did you get so scientific about it? They're never gonna understand that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Looking-
Excuse me, sir. What was the first part of that again?
The name of it is Arm and Oak. And so this is a combination of Armagnac and your French oak kind
It's
of
a different
specialty.
French oak
It's a
than
different
It's not
yeah.
the one that's in your core.
Yeah, that one is a little bit lighter toast profile. I like to call that one the creme brulee bomb, or because it has that really nice like roasted marshmallow vibe with it. Very viscous, very sweet on the palate. It comes across beautiful, but then we married it with Armagnac.
Yep. And a bourbon foundation.
Yeah.
So
7-year-old bourbon foundation, right?
So it's the 60-36, so that is all the same one that we've tried. So that should be a good activity to be able to just show you how much influence the different woods and wine finishes can have on that.
Which is just for them. Which is the Armagnac one? The straight Armagnac is the
The second, that's number 3.
number 3. So number 3 and the last in the last one. So that'll be number 3 and number
Six is the arm and
number
oak.
6.
So
3 and 6.
the custom blending program with the blue labels is probably the thing that I'm most passionate about because it just breaks through the barriers of what people know as single barrel production and allows just such more complexity and flavors to be able to be married together and put into a bottle. And I think that we really nailed it on this one because when we came into the house, I pulled out a ton of different samples. We kind of all tried the different elements.
Right.
We all decided that we were going to make our own little proto set blends. We all tried each other's and then really came out with some really good discussion and groupthink and came out with a beautiful product.
This I think is I really like the armored oak. I just think it just fits together perfectly. The barrels really complement each other, and it's one of those weird times where both barrels separately were really good, but when you brought and that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you don't want two perfect barrels. Don't necessarily you put them together and they make something great. They usually need missing something that the other one supplies to make it come together. These just I don't know, they were very good on their own, but just sort of like melded right together for me. And I think this is an elegant bourbon. I really that's sort of the way that I describe it, how it's got a ton of flavor, it's across the board, it's balanced, and it's just an elegant bourbon. And there's not many elegant bourbons out there. They're usually overly wooded or overly sweet.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah, things.
I think it's important to kind of just talk about the finishing process on it because when I'm filling up these finishing barrels, I'm not just picking out the worst barrels that I have in inventory. I'm like, man, let's throw it in maple syrup. Maybe we can cover up that dark taste on the mid palate kind of approach on it. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. But what I do is I make essentially a custom small batch of the foundation whiskey, and I have the intent and intention of putting it into white port. So I don't want the white port to mask the whiskey, and I don't want the whiskey just to overpower it. So it's a marriage of flavors, but that micro batch is made to go into specific things. So I do that as a process if it's white port, red port, Madeira, or different woods as well too. So we create that batch, we fill that barrel all the way full, and then we let it maturate for a little while. So usually, a lot of these wine finishes are around 6 months in there in the barrel right now. So it just kind of just depends. There's no magical number that cuts it off at 90 days or anything like
Right.
that.
When it's done, it's done, no matter what
Everything
it
that
is.
we do is done to taste, and I taste through these barrels all the time. So you can probably imagine how that works out for me.
At home on the couch with a mason jar.
Well, and the other two things that I found fascinating are it's not necessarily the whole barrel experience, meaning that if you have two barrels that you have to use both of everything that's in both those barrels, you can do proportions to dial in on what the specific flavor is. So it could be a third of one barrel and 3/4 of another if you want to look at it that way. Ryan and are fairly we were getting into
Stupid.
some
No,
well,
I mean,
no, I
so
mean, I was
it
going to
makes
say it's simple because you're getting such a synergy of the two barrel flavors together. And then I think the tendency, I'm going to guess with other people tasting or whatever, is that they want to just keep adding on. Like if you put 1,000 colors of crayons on your picture, it's going to be beautiful. But sometimes it just gets
Turns
too
black.
muddy. And I think that the other thing that I would say is it's the proportions can be changed. At some point the barreling or proof strength that it's bottled at can change.
Yeah, it's cast strength or die on that one.
Right, but I mean, like if you're working with your palate, you could decide that 108 is where it needs to be. And then the third thing is that it can have more than just two components. It could have 4, it could have 6, although it gets incredibly complex to try and come to consensus on anything.
Right.
When we landed on the 2 for this one, there was actually a third one, which I believe was Armagnac. There was another cask, maybe the Madeira cask, in play in this.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to dial it back to keep it because the beautiful flavor was coming out, but with very simple elements. You didn't have to go wackadoodle
Sometimes too
with
much
how
is too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Overdo it.
But it's a lot of stuff that you're trying to process because you have 15 different elements. Proportions can be different. You could do different things with those things. And we settled on something that we thought was delicious, but also easy to try and explain. And I think
What do you guys think? It's just, I mean, this bourbon is just, I love this bourbon. I know you just want the sexy bottle, but other than that, the
Yeah.
bourbon itself, what's in the bottle is what you're drinking, you know, but I think it's just, I really love this one a lot.
Yeah.
I think it came out really, really well. I hope you guys like it. Who bought, did anybody pre-buy? All right. So this is your tasting. We stand, anything that we do a pre-buy that's lock and key. We stand by it. So if you come in and you bought it and you try it and you don't like it, we'll give you your money back on it. We're not trying to take anybody for a ride. You try it, you buy it. That's our
we would
thing.
prefer that you try an open sample in the store.
Yeah, that's right. You can't just
You
jump
can go
and
home
throw.
and drink
No.
half the bottle
Yeah,
and be like,
yeah.
you know what? I'm going to
Yeah.
get another bottle.
Although I do offer, if you buy a bottle as a gift, I have offered that if the person doesn't like it, they can bring it back and I will drink it for them.
Yeah.
There's no money changing.
Can I
that.
return this one?
Sure can.
Yeah.
I have an empty bottle. You can return that.
Perfect.
There you go. All right. So the next one that we're going to try is our other blend that we put together. And this one, the barrels were a little bit bigger on this bad boy
Yes.
because we're dealing with port. So now you have the white port and the red port. But this is, we're dealing with rye, not bourbon, like in the other one that you tried today, I should say.
Yeah, so the foundation whiskey on this is the 95.5 mash bill, and then equal parts of red and white port on this as well too. But this is a very dynamic whiskey and very different from that bourbon foundation, as you will find, and you can just see how that different element and how I hope you're understanding how these 7 phases of whiskey alchemy kind of actually play into the final product and the perception of the palate.
The only qualm I have about the two that we picked out is that everybody wants to try one and then the other, because the bourbon is so like elegant and nuanced that I think is lovely, and then always all of a sudden we bring in deep, dark, and delicious, you know, and it's a bigger whiskey. There's no way around it. It's just the 95.5 rye. The red port, the white port just add a ton of other flavors. They go together beautifully. But it's like almost all it is truly the dark art. It's all encompassing.
But so Arm and Oak, the bourbon,
Yeah.
you specifically poured first,
Right.
to allow this kind of bigger second whiskey,
Right.
called Portal.
Portal.
I thought it was because you're a Rick and Morty fan.
Of course.
Could be that too.
But this is the red port, white port. But prior to this, we saw it with the bourbon. Now you're seeing it with the rye. And enjoy. Yeah.
How about this one? No flavor, right? So bland, no flavor in this one at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually is on sale. No. It actually is on sale, Lisa. So there. Haha. Yeah, you guys can take it off the shelf. This is just so you know, we have a little bit more of this one than we do the other, than the Arm and Oak, only because of the size of the barrels. Okay. But Macaulay did us a solid because they weren't, they are 50-50. So you had a little left over of one of them. What was it? The red port?
I took a few cases of
Yeah.
each of them.
They're in the basement. In the vault. Is it the super vault? Actually, your stomach. The super vault is your stomach.
And guarded by Mr. Loki, the Sphinx cat.
There you go. I know the cat. So, all right. But you guys how do you like this one? You like Portal? All right. So before we move on, because I think it's important to say about this, we're enthralled about what Macaulay sort of like said. Okay, this is sort of my idea, and this is what I want to do. I had a friend of mine who writes for Market Watch, which is an industry publication, And he says, he's always calling me. He's looking for like new ideas and stuff like that to write about. I told him about this. I said, you want to write something about this. And he did. And it sort of took off because they reworded a couple different things that were more inside baseball stuff. And they reworded it and it ended up on Whiskey Advocate online. Okay. Not the magazine, online.
The digital edition.
The digital version, which I think, to be honest with you, I think is probably read more than the print version is at this point. However, then I get another call from Whiskey Advocate and one of the other feature writers. They now doing a bigger story on this and where whiskey is sort of going and who is leading the way and who is trying to catch up. So this is gonna be featured
For
along
the
with
print-
some other for the print magazine on this too. So this is sort of like you guys are tasting basically sort of the first rounds of this, of what's happening,
of the future.
of the future of whiskey. And we talked about this a little bit on the radio show. It's like the other thing you're going to have to get used to is stop labeling me, right? It's you're going to be drinking whiskey. It doesn't necessarily have to be bourbon. It doesn't necessarily have to be rye or wheat whiskey or single malt or this or that. You're now going to start drinking about flavor, like the components. How does it taste? What does it taste like? And you're going to see people that are more you're going to be introduced to more things that don't necessarily fit a specific category, but you got to open your mind up because they're, as you can see, they're delicious. And I think that's where some of the stuff is going to go.
So I guess we're going to segue into the next one. So,
but you guys like the two that we did? Yeah. All right. Cool. I just need positive reinforcement. You know how it is. All right. So what's the next one you got?
the next one is my pride and joy, and this is going to be the first release of the special release calendar for this year. This will be hitting shelves in early April. So we've seen a lot of cigar batches and cigar blends out on the market. I'm really familiar with that, but the interesting thing is I don't smoke cigars. I smoke blunts. So this whiskey was actually made for cannabis consumption. So it's hitting shelves in April, just in time for the holidays of 420. And this one is also going to get another article written on it by Whiskey Advocate because no one's ever done a blunt blend before. So very excited to be a pioneer out here smoking and drinking,
Smoking and drinking.
This one is same foundation whiskey as previous. So it's the 95.5 rye whiskey and also is similar component. We use Madeira on this one, and we use Armagnac. So it's 2 barrels of Armagnac and 4 barrels of Madeira aged rye whiskey. For me, it's all about the palate because I had this idea of creating a blunt blend. We went through several different prototypes on it, but I think that this is perfect. This one hit when we found this one and created this, it was
On his
everything I was
couch.
looking for.
Smoking blunts.
So what was going through your head in trying to pair something that you're going to do?
I mean, a lot of this stuff that I do is I pair it with food. I mean, there's also we have some Pinot Noir bourbon that I just always call it Wagyu blood because the intent behind that one was pairing it with a piece of Wagyu or a dry aged steak and just cutting through that fat and umami with that dry Pinot, having a splash of sweetness from that whiskey on that. But with this, I found it was an idea. It was kind of a joke at first, and then when we found this one, I knew this was the holy grail for this situation because for me, there's a sweetness on the front that I call Maduka honey. I get some of that pine resin that you can also find in cannabis as well too. And then you get in on the back end of it and you have a little bit of that fruit terpene that comes in from the Madeira. So really excited to see how this one is perceived in the market. I know I've really been enjoying this and just
And
seeing
how's
what
the
else.
research been on it?
So
I'm trying to figure
the
out
research has been really
doing good results.
we
Uh-huh.
us and the
I woke
team-
up 3
us
days
and the
later.
team
That's
we're
the one.
coming up with the name of this, so because we're going to name this batch So we had a competition to see who could come up with the best name. Uh, One person had a great suggestion, but ultimately I went with my idea. We went with he thought Sorcerer Stoned was a good one. Um, I love that one, but then I decided to name this one Dank Arts. So maybe Sorcerer Stoned is volume 2 for next year, but we went with Dank Arts on this
Yeah.
one.
Either one of them works.
And being released for 420.
420 release. All right.
The finish is Madeira and Armagnac.
I love Madeira finish.
Yeah, and I would pair this with an indica as well too.
Hey, it's legal here in Massachusetts,
Yeah,
so you're good.
you know that was the first stop I made. Lobster rolls and weed. That's what you got to do when you go.
You go to New England? Okay, great. We used to be, what was it like, clam chowder and lobster. Now we're like
It's moving.
marijuana and lobster.
Yep.
Lobster stayed in there, so it's pretty good. All right. Now, the last one we're going to try is part of your core series.
Yes.
And this one is Aberana.
This is Amberana. This still goes with the same motif as the core lineup. This is a 3-barrel blend. The proof on this is 108 proof, and I worked with the cooperage to come up with a custom toast profile on the Amberana. Amberana is really polarizing, and reason we decided to go with the staving technique on it is because we wanted to be able to preserve the vanillin in the profile. So I get a lot of
More
vanilla
control.
on the front end of it.
Is it about control?
It's about control
Yeah.
on that, because you have to think when you're buying a Armagnac or an Amberana cask, this is exotic wood. These barrels are usually $5,000 plus. So you're going to continuously reuse that barrel and reuse it and reuse it. But you have to think about the chemistry of the barrel. You have to think about the extractions that are coming out of the wood. So that first time you use that beautiful toasted barrel, you're going to get through that vanillin profile. The next time you use it, you're going to start getting into more lactone notes. And then the third time you start getting into acetaldehydes and getting into this waxy,
busy,
soapy
yeah.
like quality to it, which
can
isn't a
turn.
bad thing. I mean, some people might appreciate it. I don't, but being able to do staves allows you to have a fresh biocharged piece of mass of the wood that goes into the solution each time, and you're able to get that lighter, sweeter side of it. I mean, trust me, there's still that cinnamon toast crunch vibe in it that it's always signature with Amberana, but I really love this product. It's when I was developing I knew I wanted to do an Amberana, didn't like it with the bourbons, and really thought that matching intensity with intensity was the best course of action for this, because 95.5 rye whiskey, everyone knows that mash bill. It's no secret where that came from. But we fell in love with that.
No, I think Aberana works better. I've seen people do it and then be like, "Oh, it works so good with bourbon." I go, "It works way better with rye." I agree with you. I agree with you.
And there's not a ton of rye Amberana out on the market.
No, there's not, but it definitely works better. Yes. This is part of the core series. So what is the
Yeah, it's just Amberana
Amberana
rye whiskey.
It only names the ones that are like special one-offs.
Yes.
It's here.
It's on the
It's
shelf
upstairs.
up
Upstairs.
top.
Look for the green label.
Yep.
It's here. Everybody has deemed that green shall mean rye.
Yes.
Kind of a question here. We've seen ryes, we've seen bourbons. Any other kind of whiskeys that might be in the future lineup, or anything you're excited about?
Great question, Randall. So
What great insight you have, Mr. Randallberg.
I went out to Jackson Hole a couple of weeks ago, and one of my friends, Whiskey with the View, his name's Nate. He's a big influencer guy. So we went out to his cabin, and we just started drinking all kinds of American single malt. And I just got super turned on to American single malt when we were out there. And somehow the next week I went and bought a bunch of barrels of American single malt, and
his phone heard him and started putting in his feed American single malts and where to buy them.
Yeah, so showed up at a Kentucky distillery. I personally hate this distillery. They make terrible bourbon in my opinion. and I was expecting just to go in there for a free tasting and leave. And I bought every single barrel that they presented to us that day. They're just big, beautiful fruit bombs. I mean, each one of them is a little bit different, but you get bright orchard fruits, tropical fruit. You get different various levels of tea between matcha and like a black tea on there. And then we sat down here yesterday and we actually cooked up a very special system that we're going to do. We've There's some debate on what the name of the system is going to be, if it's going to be a Helios system, a Solaris system, or Cascade system. But
This is what happens at 8:30 at night
we're
when you've been
going
drinking whiskey all day.
we're going to be taking that single malt and we're going to be finishing it in 3 different barrels. I believe it's going to the order's still out for
We're figuring this
question
part
right
out.
now. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a age system, and it's going to go through Fino sherry cask, Oloroso sherry cask, and Armagnac cask, and then continue to grow with that.
But be a malted barley product as a foundation.
Correct.
So, yeah, that to look forward to. You're on the cutting edge. You came to the right seminar today. You are now up to date on the future of whiskey. So, first of all, Macaulay, thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us today.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to thank Macaulay for being here. Randall, thank you for sticking around for this because I think it was really important to have you here. I hope you found some stuff. The core series is upstairs as well as R2. So thank you very much. I'm going to take us off Facebook and we're going to move on.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you guys. Hold on. Hold on.
Everybody to clear out. Seth, Carol, Doug, and Lynn. If you're not one of those 4 people or conform to myself, get out. No talking to the crews. I'm playing the bad guy. I'm not gonna let